it's that it's the most European of all the countries in Latin America.
Yep.
In fact, it's more European than Europe is at this point.
Yep.
It doesn't suffer from massive immigration, or any immigration for that matter, from people with alien religions, of an alien race and alien values or anything. It's these people are all Italians and Spaniards and Germans and Irish that speak Spanish basically at this point. So there was that. It has the biggest, has always had, still does, classical liberal traditions in Latin America.
Yep.
So that's good. And it was just a feeling. It's like the bones of the structure are solid, and I just didn't figure that it was going to go down forever. In fact, I'm surprised that the Paranus cancer, which still exists, has lasted as long as it has. But I think it's going to dry up and blow away, and Argentina could well turn out to be the most prosperous and the freest country in the world in 5 years. It ain't going to be America, I don't think.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the party, pal. This is Fountainhead Forum number 250. Of course, I brought a special guy back on. We've got Doug Casey for his second appearance on here. We're going to talk about Javier Milei and just what's going on in the world today. Doug's currently in Uruguay. And you said Punta Dela? Is that right?
Punta del Este. That's the
Punta del Este. Okay, yeah.
That's the beach resort town of Uruguay. Uruguay is for those who aren't up on their geography, is a small country, 4 million people. It's a farm country. It's like Kansas with a kind of a jet-setty seashore. It's all about soybeans and cattle and trees that they harvest to make pulp. That and the ritzy community of Punta del Este, which is very international and upmarket.
Yeah, which translates to Point of the East.
That's right.
Yes. So
it's also at the end of the mighty River Plate, but it sticks out into the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes, it does. I can imagine. I imagine, people never talk about it much, but I imagine you get some good seafood there.
Yeah, seafood is not a big thing in Argentina, but it is in Uruguay. So the restaurants usually go down to the harbor and buy fresh seafood every day. It's not like in the U.S., where in most places the seafood is shipped to Kansas to be processed and then shipped from Kansas back to the restaurant to be served, even if the restaurant is on the water.
Yes, it's getting so ridiculous the way our food system is in America. I don't see how a system like that can be more efficient. But anyway, let's get on to this. So, Doug, it's we're now 1 year of Javier Milei in Argentina, and you spent a lot of time there in Argentina as well. What do you have to say about Milei's first year?
Oh, I'm just tickled pink. It would have been nice, perhaps, if he'd been even more radical, but there's every indication that he's the real deal. He's an actual anarcho-capitalist who believes in the philosophy, and he doesn't just talk the talk, but he's walking the walk. And in his first year, the numbers vary, but he's gotten rid of about 50,000 government employees so far, not abolished some minor agencies, merged a bunch of others. Most important, though, because of what he's done, firing the employees, gotten rid of a lot of regulations. Yeah. Inflation in this country, which was running 300, 400%, it's hard to determine the numbers because you can't trust the numbers from the government. It's now down to, well, maybe a couple percent per month, which by Argentine standards is pretty unbelievable. And it's going to zero. In fact, the government, which is different from a country, of course, is running a surplus now. About the first time this government has ever done that, which means that they don't have to raise taxes or don't have to print money to finance what they want to do. And he's talked about eliminating about 80% of all taxes in Argentina. This country is full of regulations and taxes and all kinds of stupidity. So I'm optimistic. The stock market's up 50% in the last year. Real estate market hasn't moved yet. It's still very, very cheap. But I think that Argentina is going to have its day in the sun.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, yeah, the stock market's been that means all the investor class will certainly be happy with that. Doug, what are some of the big companies in Argentina? I mean, I haven't really talked much about that. Who are some of the big major stocks in Argentina?
Well, I don't follow the stock market. I own a lot of real estate
Okay, yeah,
in Argentina. Like, I don't know how much, like, I don't know. I don't know, like 150,000 acres or something like that, plus other stuff here in Uruguay. So I'm mainly involved in the real estate market, and real estate hasn't moved yet. It's still very, very cheap relative to where it's been in the past and relative to the world market. But you want to buy something in Argentina, there's an ETF traded in New York that you can buy, and there's a couple of industrial companies which have been around for a long time. One's a farming company called is it IRSA, and the other one is run by the same management that does basically urban office buildings and things of that nature. So a bit of research. I think they're probably excellent buys at this point because this country is likely to boom over the
yes,
over the next over the next 3 years when Milei is still in office. I think he'll be reelected because he's actually growing in popularity, and maybe he'll put an end to Peronism, which was Juan Perón's answer to Mussolini and Hitler.
Yes, our show is not financial advice. It's not tax advice. It's not legal advice. It's not immigration advice. But anyway, that's a good sign. I mean, most people don't like inflation, and I don't think Americans have ever really even been able to fathom that kind of inflation. When you keep going back to the restaurant and a cup of coffee that was $1 in January is now $4 in December. Just curious, Doug, for way of comparison, how has the Argentine peso compared to the peso in Uruguay?
Well, like all South American countries, it's look. These countries are all crazy. I did a study about 7 or 8 years ago between Brazil's currencies, of which they've had a number. They've had I can't even remember the names of all their stupid currencies in Brazil. Cruzeiros, Reals, and same thing here in Argentina, where they totally and absolutely destroy a currency, and then they come up with a new one with a new name, like the Austral or the new peso or whatever. And it's very inconvenient because the first time I came to Argentina, which was, I think, in 1979, it was at the height of a runaway inflation.
Yeah.
And my friend had stacks like a couple feet tall, full of the largest Argentine bills. It was very inconvenient because you had to walk around with a stack of bills. In fact, it was like that way even 18 months ago before Milei came in office. If you wanted to walk out on the street, the largest bill was worth about $1. And you had to stuff them in your pockets. So it was crazy. And then with the foreign exchange controls here, sometimes, and it changed back and forth, if you used a credit card instead of using cash, you'd have to pay the official exchange rate, which was like a 50% tax. So it was just horrible. This country was really dysfunctional. And now it's becoming not just a normal country, but a real and prosperous country. So I'm going to feel very smart, I think, in a couple of years, having been to Argentina, especially if we have a nuclear war in the Northern Hemisphere, which is not out of the question.
I did look this up. The just Uruguay versus Argentina a year ago. It was about it was 18.4. Would 1 peso from Uruguay would get you 18.4 pesos in Argentina, and now it's about 23. So, although I know also when Milei when Milei brought the controls into the currency controls up to where the market was, that might have done had something to do with it. But it looks like there's been some stability with the currency because the official exchange rate wasn't the same as the market exchange rate, and now Milei brought them into consistency.
Right. Well, the main purpose that Uruguay has served for many years has been a refuge for Argentines that cross the Mighty Plate River with a bunch of money and buy some land or an apartment here, and can insulate themselves from the Argentine government. And the Brazilians also do that to a lesser degree. So that was the raison d'etre for Uruguay. And it's a nice little country. It was the world's first official socialist country. Few people know that. And it's a welfare state. Taxes are not bad for non-residents, but they're high. They're high. Look, all these Latin American countries are kind of crazy, quite frankly. But the standard of living is high if you have dollars. If you're a foreigner who has a good income, it's a fantastic place to live. Both of these countries are, and southern Brazil too. Wonderful place to live.
Yeah, Uruguay was also really the best place in South America to be during the Corona pandemic too. It really wasn't too bad, from what I hear.
Wasn't too bad. No, that's correct. And of course, during the pandemic, I was here on the farm, and we have everything we need here on the farm. So I rarely ventured out. There's a highway in the far distance over here. I don't know if you can see that. That's a big
Not really pretty
pasture and soybean field, but way off in the far distance, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 miles, I can see a highway out there over the trees.
Yeah.
And during the pandemic, or I should say the COVID hysteria, because it was just a stupid hysteria.
Yes.
I noticed that the traffic on the highway out there went down about 80%. It dropped tremendously.
Yeah, people just weren't doing stuff.
No, they weren't.
You apparently predicted that Argentina was the most likely country for a libertarian revolution. What were the things that you saw that made you come to that conclusion? And you ended up being right.
Well, it's the most European of all the countries in Latin America.
Yeah.
In fact, it's more European than Europe is at this point.
Yeah.
It doesn't suffer from massive immigration, or any immigration for that matter, from people with alien religions, of an alien race and alien values or anything. It's these people are all Italians and Spaniards and Germans and Irish that speak Spanish, basically, at this point. So there was that. It has the biggest, has always had, still does, classical liberal traditions in Latin America.
Yep.
So that's good. And it was just a feeling. It's like the bones of the structure are solid, and I just didn't figure that it was going to go down forever. In fact, I'm surprised that the Paranus cancer, which still exists, has lasted as long as it has. But I think it's going to dry up and blow away, and Argentina could well turn out to be the most prosperous and the freest country in the world in 5 years. It ain't going to be America, I don't think.
I don't think so either. There are some differences though. Uh, I've heard that Argentines still aren't really very keen on the idea of everybody owning a gun and stuff like that. Is that true? I mean,
No, the gun laws here in Argentina aren't ideal. You have
yeah,
to register every gun you own, uh,
yeah,
but you can own as many guns as you'd like. And
okay,
in Uruguay, where I am at the moment, it used to be you could own 5 guns. Now
yeah.
they changed the law and you can own 8 guns.
Oh wow,
So actually, some things have liberalized and gotten better. Uh, they still have stupid laws, like you can't own a gun with of larger than 9 millimeter in caliber. So you can't own a 45 automatic, for instance. Uh, there's stupid things like that, but it could be worse.
yeah, it could be worse. I wasn't sure. People go out shooting because crime is still a problem in Argentina. And one thing we haven't seen is I don't know if there's any popular support for it, but it doesn't look like they've really tried to roll back their war on drugs much in Argentina. Maybe that'll happen in the future, but
Well, pot is legal in Argentina. It's also legal in Uruguay. And,
that's good.
maybe it's just the people I run around with
Yeah,
and talk to, but drugs seem to me to be a total non-problem. I mean, nobody really cares about them. So they may be shipping cocaine or God knows what through here, and people probably take it, but you don't see them laying around on the streets, anything like that. And Buenos Aires is actually a very safe city. Historically, Buenos Aires has been one of the safest cities anywhere. And it's gotten worse over the Kirchner years, the last 10 years, but now it's going to get better again. So it'll once again be very safe. Uruguay is very safe, frankly. I mean, maybe somebody will pick your pocket, but that can happen anywhere.
yeah, and you didn't see people shitting on the street and stuff like that in Buenos Aires, Uruguay. It looked like Buenos Aires, showed me it is possible to be this really gigantic city and still be a really great city. It just, I've said my brother who loves Victorian architecture, if he'd went there, he never would have left. It was just beautiful in so many ways, and it just, you know, and of course,
No,
public.
you're absolutely correct. And the prices of those beautiful properties, if you buy an apartment here, are
Yeah,
a fraction of what they would be in the U.S. Sometimes a small fraction.
yeah. I still hear mostly in Argentina, though Rosario is somewhat dangerous, but that's where some of the crime is. But
Well, I've never been to
yeah,
Rosario. It's kind of an industrial city in the interior, so I can't give you any firsthand testimony. But other places in the province are just in the provinces are just delightful.
yeah,
And you got to remember, is it the seventh or is it the eighth largest country in the world? But it's only got 40 million people. So it's unpopulated. And you go out
yeah,
into the country and you can drive for hours and not
yeah,
see another person. Now, that can be inconvenient if your car breaks down, but you
mhm.
shouldn't drive a crappy car in a country where that's a problem.
Yeah. It's definitely, yeah, yeah. I can imagine. Of course, of course, about almost 40% of the population lives around BA, but then you go out there, there really are some wide open spaces. You can get some farmland or open up a cattle ranch or do lots of things. It's probably a lot you can do with
Well,
that land.
that's right. Now that Milei is in office, that could actually turn into a viable business.
Yeah. Yeah, I do wonder sometimes. It seems like Milei is really getting close to Musk. I wonder if Musk will end up building something down there. I wonder if that's what Milei, because he's certainly spending a lot of time with Elon Musk. What do you think about that?
Well, if I was Musk, I wouldn't do anything down here until he's sure that
Yeah,
the reforms that Millet is trying to put into place are kind of set in concrete. Because the way this works, the way it worked with the previous uh, reasonable and intelligent president, a guy named Macri, who was elected,
yeah,
I don't know, 8 years ago. Uh, you know, he spiffs things up and improves the public services and puts money in the bank. And then the people elect a leftist, and the leftist gets to live high off the hog and piss it all away for 4 years. And you're worse off than where you started with.
Yeah.
So maybe Millet will be successful if he pulls out all these agencies by the root, not just trims them back and makes them more
Yeah.
efficient the way they're supposed to do in the U.S. The Elon and Vivek are supposed to do. You got to pull them out by the root and sow Agent Orange where they grew. And I think he'll try to do that.
Yeah. This is one thing we've learned by now. You cut the weeds grow back. You get out your shovel though, and you dig the weeds up, and that's what you have to do. You have to, because cutting the weeds, they just grow back.
Oh yeah, no, more than that. Like I said,
Yeah.
Agent Orange or
Yeah.
Roundup in massive quantities.
Agent Orange. Okay. Well, that's certainly effective yet. What are you've been? Did you go to a lot of other cities in Argentina? What are some other really cool cities in Argentina? If you say somebody's looking for a smaller town, I've been to Cordoba, but
Uh, well, I've spent a lot of time in Salta province, which is in the northwest of the country, and a lot of it looks like Utah or Colorado or
yes,
around the Four Corners area. It's very beautiful.
yeah,
And actually, I did a development there. We bought, how much land did we buy? Well, we bought a lot of land there. But for the development outside the town of Cafajate, we bought,
yeah,
I think we bought 600 acres. And we built a really nice development with a golf course and a polo field and a world-class gymnasium and on, blah, blah, blah. And of course, so far, we've lost money on it. The first person that builds a golf course always loses a shirt. I knew better, but we did it anyway. So you could look at the town of Cafajate, 10,000 people, a lot of gringos, a lot of Europeans now. That's an excellent place to live. One suggestion, for a bigger city, my first choice would be Mendoza, I think. If you're
yeah,
orient towards the exotic, I would go up to the triple frontier area between Paraguay, Brazil, and Argentina, up north to Ciudad del Este, which is all kinds of strange things happen there, and it's a major area for transporting all kinds of untaxed and illicit things. It's a wild and crazy, interesting place. I like that too. I mean, listen. There's lots of nice places in this country.
yeah.
It's empty. It's empty.
Yeah. You said Cia del Este, is that right?
Yeah, Ciudad del Este.
Ciudad del Este, yeah. Okay, yeah, Ciudad just being the Spanish word for city, yes. Yeah, that looks like an interesting area. Of course, you get to see Iguazu Falls, which of course is impressive enough. I also know about Salta because they have that one lovely lady, Maria Amelia Orozco, who's in the legislature. She's really cool.
I
Definitely.
don't follow the local politicians, even though when we did our development, the
Yeah.
governor of the province is a 50-50 partner with us on that particular development. The governors of these provinces in Argentina are really like warlords.
Yeah.
They have a lot of leeway to run things.
Well, I was referring to one of the deputies from Salta who's in the chamber in Buenos Aires. She's from Salta, yeah, and she's pretty prominent with La Libertad Avanza. So,
Well, that's
yeah,
good. I'm glad to hear
yeah,
that. Like I said, I don't generally associate with those people.
yeah. But well, you might know about him. Any opinions on any people in Milei's cabinet or not?
No, not really. I'm just hoping the best. There's nothing I can bring to the party, frankly.
Yeah.
So I just wish him well.
Yeah, you can't. Maybe you don't want to, but I guess if you're a foreigner, you can volunteer, but I don't think you can give money, or of course it's not as tightly regulated down there as it is up here. money and finance and
Well,
stuff like that.
well, corruption is much more rampant down here, so you can do a lot more of what you might want to do. But like I said, I don't get involved in politics anywhere because it's a waste of time. I say that despite the fact that my hobby for 30 years has been going to dogshit third world countries and talking to preferably the military dictator when I can find him about radically transforming their country into a Singapore or a Hong Kong on steroids. I've had wonderful adventures doing that, but never any success. It was just a hobby.
Yeah, Singapore, Hong Kong on steroids. Yeah, you can certainly do some free market reforms. What's what's the healthcare like in Argentina?
It's very, very good and
Yeah,
vastly less expensive than it is in the U.S. If you have anything that's wrong with you, you'll be well treated in Argentina. The quality of the personnel and the hospitals is excellent, and the costs are way below what they are in the U.S. Of course, if I was going to have a serious operation, my first choice might be Thailand, actually, but any country in Latin America. Well, we don't want to go to Bolivia, but you can go to southern Brazil or Argentina, and you're going to get world-class care for a fraction of what you pay in the U.S.
yeah. In a lot of the Latin American countries, they have the government, and then they have the private system, and usually you find good stuff in the private system, is from what I hear.
Well, you go to the public hospitals, and you
Yeah.
have to bring your own soap and towels and sheets for your
Yeah.
bed and
Jeez.
stuff like that. That's the public system. So you want to kind of stay away from that. I mean, sure, the quality of care is still just fine, but it's not five-star service in the public system. In the
Yeah.
private system, it definitely is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I gotta say, any, yeah, you mentioned Ciudad del Este, which looks like it's in Paraguay, but the free frontiers, that's interesting. Yeah, and I've heard lots of nice things about Mendoza, and Mendoza's more in the mountains, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's on the it's at the foot of the Andes, and you can see the Andes when you're in Mendoza. It's very picturesque.
Yeah, they're pretty impressive mountains. I've been in the mountains on the Chilean side, but not in the Argentine side. So yeah, if you're also very outdoorsy, you can go up and maybe do some hiking or climbing. It's of course they're high mountains out there. Argentina just has a lot of natural beauty too. Have you been way down south?
No, I haven't. I've been pretty far south in Chile, but not in Argentina. And you know, I'd say in terms of per square kilometer of what's pretty, Chile is probably the prettiest country in Latin America because it's got this long, long coastline, and it's got the mountains, and in the north it's got a desert, and in the south it's got glaciers. And the way you get around in Chile is you can take these really good buses that they have. They're better than aircraft in many ways. So Chile's got a lot to offer, but its current government situation is not very good. I mean, Pinochet is the best thing that ever happened to Chile. I mean, he turned it from a backward, kind of primitive mining province into the most prosperous country in Latin America where everything works. But of course, everybody hated him for that because, as often happens in these Latin American countries, there are probably, they say, who knows, maybe there were a couple thousand people that bit the dust. But anyway, Chile is going backwards now. It's just the way things work down here.
Yeah, one of the most impressive things about Milei too is though he has I think a 70% approval rating among voters under 30. And is that the trend you see? I mean, it seems like because I think Milei's really launching something. We may get more Mileis out there, and that's the thing we want.
Well, it's possible because in El Salvador, which was, I would say, after Haiti, which is totally, I spent a lot of time in Haiti over the years, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But after Haiti, El Salvador was the worst shithole in the Western Hemisphere, and against all odds. Since Bukele has been in office, it's transformed. It's now crime-free. See, I haven't been there since he's been installed. I've been there before that and didn't like it very much. But of course, he's had to put about 65,000 gang members in jail, which is a lot of people. I don't know how long he's going to be able to keep them in jail and what he's going to do with them when they get out, if they get out. But El Salvador is doing pretty well. And other than, well, you have to get rid of you had to solve the crime problem down there. So was that the best way to do it? I don't know. He got it done. And of course, he's trying to make Bitcoin the national currency instead of the dollar, which is the de facto national currency in El Salvador. Yeah. So you got Milei, you got Bukele, and maybe there are going to be others. So and you know, Trump has got lots of problems, but at least he's not Kamala. That would have been a nightmare if they'd elected Kamala. It'd be game over for the U.S. Game over. I mean, I don't think I would have come back. It would have been, you know. So anyway, so maybe we'll have morning in America for a while under Trump, but morning only lasts for 6 hours.
It seems like people around South America are getting to know who Milei is. What's the impression of Milei around South America? What do they say about him in Uruguay, for example?
Well, listen. People are unfamiliar with the concept of an anarcho-capitalist who actually wants to destroy the state. Doesn't want to change the state. He wants to destroy the state. So it shocks people. And most people that go to universities down here, just like in the US, they're indoctrinated with all kinds of socialist nonsense. And so they're pretty shocked. But well, reality will out. So I'm very optimistic, actually, very optimistic.
I'm optimistic too. I've called Milei the most important election in the history of the world. I mean, it seems like it. Comparing this to the Bolsheviks taking over in the Soviet Union, it's. I mean, that's the one thing though is will the colleges ever change? It's because it sounds like the colleges in South America are even worse than they are in the U.S.
Well, one good thing Milei is doing is having people pay for their colleges instead of getting freebies. Even foreigners could come to an Argentine university and have a freebie. So that's coming to an end because college is generally speaking, not just a misallocation of 4 years of time and a bunch of money. It's a waste. In fact, it's more negative than a waste. It's an actual detriment to your future. I mean, you can have a lot of fun in college. I did, but it's criminal wasting 4 years and a lot of money to do nothing of value except maybe absorb some stupid ideas. Unless, of course, you take a STEM course and you're serious about it. That's a different story. But that's not most people.
Yeah. I do want to ask, it does seem to be a place where some people build their networks. I mean, if you don't have college, how do you build a network?
Well, I'm writing a book with my co-podcaster. And incidentally, while we have a chance, I've got to put a plug in for my own podcast, which is called Doug Casey's Take on YouTube.
Yes.
And also put a plug in for my blog, which is internationalman.com. It's free. And we have great articles every day that are relevant to international things. So so anybody listening to this should go there and subscribe to that. And the last thing is I have 3 novels that are out: Speculator, Drug Lord, and Assassin, where we trace our hero, Charles Knight, as he advances through increasingly politically incorrect occupations and has wonderful adventures. So go on Amazon and get those. You will be happy and rewarded. So before I went off on that little commercial, what was I talking about?
Yeah, we were talking about, just The universities, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm writing a book now
Yeah.
with Matt Smith,
Yeah.
who I do my podcast with,
Mhm.
and it explains exactly precisely what you should do instead of going to college with that time and that money to, in effect, turn yourself into a
Mhm.
Renaissance man or the Count of Monte Cristo, if you wish. And I hope that book is going to be out within a year, or probably less at this point. And now I urge young people not to go to college. That's about the most brain dead thing you can do with your time and your money. You emerge from college with stupid ideas and a debt burden around your neck, when you
Yeah.
should emerge from that 4 years of time loaded with skills and knowledge and a fat bank account. So that's
And,
what the book is about.
and it wasn't like that when you went to college, though, Doug. It really wasn't. I mean, I've talked to some people how cheap it was.
Oh, it was, yeah, I went to a high-priced college. I went to Georgetown University. It
Yeah.
was a stupid choice. I should have gone to Harvard. But even then, it was even in deflated dollars. I mean, it was much less expensive than it is today. And the teachers were actually pretty high quality, actually. And there wasn't a virus running through campus like there is today. Uh, so yeah, it was arguably worthwhile back then, but I still wouldn't have done it if I'd had good counsel.
Yeah. Doug, I want to ask you too. Does assuming how big Buenos Aires is, does that have a film TV scene there? Like, do they, where do they make a lot of movies in South America? Or do you
I
know?
don't.
Okay.
That's I don't know. I just don't follow it, frankly. But I can tell you that you can get all the you can get YouTube and Hulu
Yeah.
and Disney, and there must be a dozen of those things on your TV screen down here as easy as you can in the U.S.
Well, I was acting because I've also taken acting classes, and so that would be. And sometimes if you're a gringo in those markets, you're actually a fairly hot commodity. As an actor, I mean, for various roles. But you obviously have to go where they're making the movies and stuff. But
Yeah, well,
yeah,
that's not my gig.
yeah.
So
From what I hear, though, there's as much Spanish speaking stuff made in Miami as any place. But anyway, but yeah. So also I've got to ask, what's it? I assume you've driven. Have you done a lot of driving in Argentina? What's that like? I mean, you get a car. I mean,
yeah, you can get a car, but the trouble is when you rent a car down here,
yeah,
it's generally hard to rent what we'd consider a proper car in the US or
well,
Canada. They're little cars.
yeah,
And so that's a disadvantage about renting a car down here. So,
yeah. I wasn't sure. It's usually, although a lot of people go to these cities and they just live off of Ubers because Uber and Lyft is pretty cheap. But
mhm.
yeah, and one thing you also,
Well, here in Buenos Aires, I take taxis because there's lots of taxis, and they're not as cheap as they were because
yeah,
prices have risen a lot here in Argentina in the last year. They've risen a lot. Taxis used to be almost free here now, but everything's still quite reasonable. It's not free like it was a year
Mhm.
ago. It seemed like it was free, but now it's
Yeah.
like cheap.
I should correct that, by the way. You can't really get Lyft in South America, but I know there's Cabify, and a lot of times you can just kind of flag one down fairly easily. Uh,
Oh, well, very easily, as a
yeah,
matter of fact.
I,
And listen, I don't even use my cell phone down here. I don't like to use my cell phone anywhere. It's like being attached to a dog leash.
yeah, and also, when you're talking about cars, you're much more likely to get a standard transmission in South America.
Well, I don't mind standard
Yeah,
transmissions. I've almost always had them in the past. But yeah, you're quite correct. Chances are it will be a standard transmission, but that's not the worst thing.
yeah. Well, I asked,
Why don't haven't you ever driven
I'm kind
a
of embarrassed to say I've never learned to drive one. So yeah,
well, it's not hard. You ought to
yeah,
learn.
you just you know, uh, I can tell you, Scott Horton, for example, still has a pickup truck with a standard transmission. He's had it a long time, but yeah. because you can hardly get them in America anymore. But the other thing too, you get all these other ridiculous whistles and bells on your car that you do not need. I mean, I would be perfectly happy with manual windows and all this other stuff. I don't know if cars are like that in South America, if there's over.
Well, look, I can afford any kind of car that I
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
And frankly, I don't want a new car because
Yeah.
I really don't like living in a computer matrix, which is what new cars are like,
Oh yeah.
with thousands of chips, and anything can go wrong with any of them. So, yeah, I like something that's simple and powerful and fun. I, what it actually might get is a rebuilt. I've been thinking about this. A rebuilt model of a 1966 Mustang, good looking, but with upgraded suspension and engine and things like that, and without all the crap they put on new cars. I might get that just because it's fun to drive.
Yeah. By the way, Doug, if you're ever near Birmingham, Alabama, a little bit outside of town is the Mustang Museum of America.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's worth checking out, and it's basically just a couple guys who really like Mustangs, and they've got all these old Mustangs in there. It's pretty wild. If you ever get a chance to check that out.
Yeah, well, back when I was buying and selling and driving lots of cars,
yeah,
I was a Corvette guy,
yeah.
but also a Mustang guy, and also a Cobra guy. I had 3 Cobras, 2 289 Cobras and a 427 Cobra. I wish I still had them because they'd all be worth in between $1 million and $2 million a piece today. But they were just used cars back then, so who would have guessed? But Chris, I got to run. The old clock on the wall is moving along.
Okay, Doug, I didn't realize you only had 40 minutes, but yeah, it's been great having you back on. We could just other things too, well, this has been a good conversation, Doug. I certainly wanted to get a highlight on Milei. Where can we find you out there?
Well, go to internationalman.com, and it's a free subscription, and we have really good articles every day, so that's worthwhile. And go on YouTube to Doug Casey's Take, and go on Amazon for the novels, Speculator, Drug Lord, and Assassin.
Yes,
and don't fall behind, because the next in the series is when our hero Charles Knight becomes a terrorist.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, go buy my novel, Escape from the Village, check out my Substack, go to Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you, Doug Casey. It's been great talking to you. Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.